This is the A to Z podcast. Back here in freezing-ass Ohio, I'm ranking 8 and 9-year-old baseball players. Out there in Arizona, our friend Andre Knott has been having a little too much fun and a little too much sun and showed up too early for the Indians game. So he texted me and said, if you're free, we could record a podcast.
It's true. It is true. As you make a lot of jokes about CP time, I figured out a new one. I don't even think this is WP time. I don't think you guys get this. Is my dad's time, is what my wife calls it, because my dad is notorious for showing up places hours before he's supposed to. And I totally sat down in the media room and I was like, why is no one on the field? And it hit me that I'm an hour before the game is supposed to start. So I'm money right now, or actually I'm a joke, to be completely honest.
Hey, it's facebook.com/A to Z podcast, A to Z podcast.com. Shouts, as always, to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, and to American Fireworks for helping to make this happen. It is that time of year. American Fireworks, they have their demo day. It's always the Saturday of the draft. I know here in Cleveland and surrounding areas, the draft is not the same as it's been, but demo day is one of the big days at American Fireworks. What you do is you come out, you bring your kids, you bring your friends. They blow a bunch of stuff up. They give you a gift card for going if you go to AmericanFireworks.com. They've always got specials and coupons on there, but they're getting ready for their season. So if you're into fireworks, if your kids are into fireworks, demo day this year, April 27th, is a good day to hit them up. You make reservations in advance, and it's AmericanFireworks.com. Can you shoot fireworks in Arizona, Dre, or is it too dry?
I think you can do whatever you want in Arizona. Everybody has a gun, so I don't know why you couldn't do that.
I wasn't asking for a personal itinerary while your wife's not there. I was asking a legal question, but that's okay.
No, that's about as legal as I get. I mean, I'm allowed, I guess. I don't know what they can do here. It's a different world.
So we really haven't talked much baseball, and frankly, there's not a lot of baseball to talk. We're 3+ weeks from real baseball. Bryce Harper signed. Why don't you just take everybody through, what you've been doing, what you've been seeing, who you've been talking to, because I now know you've seen some games in addition to being around the facility while they're working out in the morning, going through whatever it is they do. I've never been to a spring training, at least not for any length of time, so I don't really know what it is that they do.
Spring training is very much like what you go through in Berea for Browns training camp. It literally is the same thing every single day. Today's obviously different, and it's the reason why I've been thrown off a little bit, because usually everything happens in the morning. Then you play a game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and usually by 4:30, 5 o'clock, everyone is back to their hotels or to their houses that have been rented or to their condos. And it makes for a really cool setting for baseball players because it's just different than anything else during the regular season. And it actually gives you time to get to know your teammates, to have barbecues, to have cookouts, to hang out with your family. Pretty much the complete opposite of what baseball season is like. And really, it's funny because I talked to Terry Francona about this today. There are more and more teams now in the spring that are trying to schedule more night games, to schedule more things that replicate what you do for 6 months during the season, because it is very odd to go through a whole spring where you play at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you may play, you play those every Sunday the rest of the year. So more teams are playing night games. This is what the Indians are doing tonight as they're getting ready to take on the Dodgers. It's been, I did an interview today with Bruce Drennan, and it was kind of weird because Mike Clevenger is making his first start of the spring. And that doesn't mean that he hasn't been working out or throwing or doing anything. But Terry Francona and the Indians coaching staff is kind of going out of its way with all their pitchers that threw over 200 innings other than Trevor Bauer. They're kind of slow rolling them into the spring. And this is something different, but it's basically Tito's way of saying, we're going to ride you guys during the season. So we're going to give you the best way to get ready for the season without making the intensity really high in the beginning of March. It seems to make sense to me. I know I made the joke to Clevenger the other day. The best thing he ever did was go in 200 innings last year, so he has this. But now it means that, all these starts leading up in these last 3 weeks before the season, they matter. Carrasco did a side thing back at the facility yesterday. Kluber did one today. And I think it's the right thing that they're doing. It's just something different to see them do it. This has been one of those camps. I haven't really said much about this, but just to bring things home for people back at home. We all know who Klay Thompson is, and some of the older listeners may know who Michael Thompson is. But Trace Thompson is here in camp, and I don't want to say his chances of making the team are slim. I shouldn't say that because Tito wants him here. Tito so told me today that he wants Trace Thompson to make the team because he's a 6'3" athlete, can run, swings the bat from the right-hand side. And those are all things that the Indians need. They just don't know how he will fit in this organization or on the roster. But Tito went out of his way today to say, I want the kid around here because we need those type of guys. And if he can be healthy, really his story, and I'm glad you brought this up, the Trace Thompson story is the story that makes spring training. Everybody wants to know when Francisco Lindor is going to play, and we don't know. It may not be until the last week that we're here. Everybody wants to know about injured players. Everyone wants to know if you got somebody new. But I think when you're Terry Francona and the Indians, when you get a chance to get someone as talented as Trace Thompson and has the lineage that he has, you want him to make it. You want him to blow everyone away, and you want him to be a guy that no one was talking about 2 months ago that changes your team. And Tito said to me earlier today that, he said, 2 years ago we saw Trace Thompson with the Chicago White Sox, and he looked like a budding superstar. And the way he was hitting the ball, the way he was throwing people out, he had a month and a half of baseball on the big league level where he was going to be he's going to be the same thing his brother is to the Golden State Warriors. He ended up hurting his back, never really got healthy again. He's bounced around. And really, to me and my job over the next 20 days, it's to find stories like that and to see if he can make it. I don't know if he will. It's an uphill battle. But if he does make it, it'll be really cool because it's a good story. And I got to ask you from a journalistic point, this is, like I said, this is just like, training camp for the Browns or for a football team. You want to do those stories, but my job, I don't want to go right up to him, Zach, and be like, hey, man, it's 25-man roster. You're probably number 28 right now. What do you got to do to be 25? I don't want to do that, but I do want to tell a story, and I'm trying to find the right way to approach him to tell a story without being like every other reporter that says, what's it like being Klay Thompson's brother? Or what's it like being Michael Thompson's son? Because he's grown up with that, right?
What a story that'll be. Trace Thompson saves the Indians. Klay Thompson in free agency comes to the Cavs. Cleveland Thompson takeover.
Stop it. I'll say what
look, it does make for a good story, and you're probably exactly right on the fact that he's probably tired of talking about Klay and talking about I'm goddamn sick and tired of talking about who my brother is, right? Who my dad is.
For sure.
That's for sure. But I don't think, Dre, especially guys that have been through it, obviously you don't want to come out the first question with this, but I think guys are willing to talk, and sometimes it becomes good TV. Like, hey, man, that nothing's given here, right? A lot of guys are here playing golf and going to concerts, and you're fighting for a job. So I think sometimes you get good answers when you ask honest, direct questions like that. I really do.
True. No, you're right. I think you're right. I think sometimes it's in getting to know guys. And look, everybody deals with pressure differently. And you're right. And you make a great point. There's 20 guys here that are going to golf. Like, I know half of our pitchers went and golfing this morning. And why should they not? If you can, and it's 80 degrees and beautiful, and you got all these golf courses around, and you know that your spot is locked up, why would you not go do that? But it is something to watch the other 20 guys that have no idea where they're going on March 25th when this team leaves Arizona.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm glad you brought up the NFL comparison. I mean, I've covered 20 training camps. Or it'll be 20 this year, actually. I was just doing the math the other day.
Damn.
So I've been to the Minnesota Twins facility, but not while they're there, in the spring.
Okay.
So, describe the facility and kind of what goes on, like how many fields and what goes on there. And not just that, because obviously we know what a baseball field looks like, regardless of how it's dressed up. But, is it near a city? Do the guys stay on campus or nearby? Is it close? Is it not close to anything? Kind of paint the picture for me.
It's not close to. It's basically Arizona, and the area that we're in Goodyear is basically a ton of strip malls, and there's not really much cities. Most of the players stay 10 to 15 minutes away. Some that are real ambitious may go all the way out to Scottsdale, which is 45 minutes away. Scottsdale is its own. Scottsdale is something else. Is all I'll say. It's like a mini LA. That's where the Giants are right now. The Cubs aren't far away, and it's fun to go there, but you better have a lot of money and better take an Uber. Are the two rules I would give you. Ask the outfit. There's an outfitter who just got banged for a DUI last week. That's playing for the Giants, playing out in Scottsdale. And Goodyear, more of a retirement area, not very fast living. It's grown a lot in the last 10 years that the Indians have been here, but still just a lot of, like I said, just a lot of strip malls, a couple bars, restaurants, nothing that blows you away. The biggest sports bar is Dan Marley's bar, and it's kind of funny. Dan, it's Marley's got like 3 or 4
Is it called
sports
Thunder
bars around
Dams
here,
or
but he's
something like that?
No, it's called Marley's. It's just Marley's.
Okay, all right.
But he's the head basketball coach at like Grand Canyon U or something.
GCU, one of the great home courts in college hoops. Yep,
it really is. Yeah, and Dan Marley's the head coach there, so that's a fun thing about it. The other cool thing, like right now tonight, I'm in Glendale. It's called Camelback Ranch. You can literally see the Arizona, like the Cardinals. You can see the Cardinals football stadium from here. The one that looks like something out of a spaceship. Basically, the Dodgers and the White Sox own this facility here in Glendale. And Glendale, you and I were here in 2007, and we've told that story when we were in Glendale. And Glendale has changed so much, Zach, since we were out here. Remember, there was like one hotel, the stadium, and not an ESPN zone, but remember it was a Fox Sports zone. And we watched Oregon State and Oregon with Derek Anderson and like 15 or 25,000 of his family on one TV with Arizona State on the other. Like literally, if you saw that area now, Zach, on Wednesday nights they have like an old car show. The hockey team plays out there now. They've probably got 5 to 10 restaurants, big time restaurants. Like it's the place to go when you're out here. When you're in Goodyear, you're 20 minutes from that. So a lot of families stay. Like I know my family is renting a house in Glendale. Glendale's kind of just that place. It's kind of the hip place in between going to Scottsdale if you're in Goodyear. So I end up being here a lot. It's one of the reasons why I was willing to come here tonight, because I was like, if it's Glendale, I'll go for half the game, and I know I can stop and get a good quote-unquote meal on the way home over by the stadium. So that sums up a little bit.
I love when you're honest without having to advertise the Dre. Don't lie. I really do.
Hey, man, that's what this podcast has been doing for multiple years. The other thing is the facilities are pretty cool. All of them are different. The Indians share theirs with the Cincinnati Reds. So it's crazy because you'll just be walking along if you're somewhere, in Goodyear around the facility, and like Yasuo Puig walked by me yesterday. I almost hit him in my rental car, and he just smiled at me. So you just never know who you're going to run into. There's probably 15 baseball fields for each team. Some are just infields. Some are just for minor leaguers. Some are for guys that are hurt. The Indians currently are building like a dorm right across the street from their facility for minor league guys and for hurt guys, and for the winter league that gets played out here. It's just crazy. It's like a different part of the world. And really, I don't know if spring training will exist in Florida in 10 years. There's so many more teams, Zach, that are in Arizona now compared to Florida. You mentioned Minnesota. Minnesota's obviously still in Florida. Baltimore's still out there. Atlanta's still there. But you'd be amazed how many teams have come out. I mean, the Dodgers for years were Vero Beach in Florida, and now they're here in Glendale. And the reason why, if people are curious about that, in Florida, it's like every road trip is like an hour-and-a-half drive. Here, like I just said, the Dodgers are 20 minutes away from where the Indians are. Scottsdale, where the Cubs, Giants, they're 45 minutes away. Like everything, there's really no road trip here in Arizona that's more than an hour, where almost every road trip in Florida is an hour and a half, if not more.
Oh, yeah, and that is a big deal, especially in today's day and age. I was really curious in the living situation. Yeah. Now, I can't tell you, Dre, whether this is urban legend or this is something I read in a magazine sometime long ago, but I read this was passed along to me, put it that way, that Manny Ramirez, when he went to Boston, and this was framed in the just that he didn't live in the real world like the rest of us, right?
Right.
He saw his teammates had houses in Florida. Whether they were their year-round houses or whether they lived there for a month, I don't know, obviously. And I'm piecing together this story that's probably third or fourth hand. And one day he went to his agent and was like, do I have enough money to get a house here in Florida? And the agent was like, Manny, you could buy the whole neighborhood. However that got passed along, it's something that stuck with me. And so, and I know, what some of the, even when the Indians don't pay what other teams pay, a lot of these guys have shit tons upon shit tons of money. But of the 100-some guys in camp, more of them don't. So I had no idea, did they stay in a hotel? Is there a dorm? Like, what is the situation?
No, the rookies, that is a great story about Manny, and it's true. The rookies, they all kind of stay in hotels. But most of the vets, if you're making money, you're renting out a house. And there's some kick-ass houses. I mean, you saw the scene that I texted you the last time we were podcasting a couple of days ago that I'm living in. So there's some guy, like a couple players, like the younger players that have made a little money. they rent houses out together that are just unbelievable pads with swimming pools and hot tubs and 3 different types of grills. And I mean, trust me, it's some good living out here. The other thing is, it's amazing how many players now just move to Arizona and live here year round. Whether it be because you're close to spring training or because of the housing that was cheap really for the last couple of years. There are a lot of players that have their own stuff here, is what I would put, like way to live. But it's cool. Like I know Naquin and Zimmer and Clevenger, all those guys kind of live together or around each other. There's a lot of guys, like I said, younger guys that don't have families yet that kind of hang out and do this together, which makes this go a little bit faster, I would guess.
Right. So that's a thing too, coming up when the Browns were young and I was young. One of the things they used to talk about internally was establishing when the players live in Cleveland, that's when we've made it, right? Like, because you had young guys that weren't from there, didn't need to be there, right? So it's like, well, we don't until we get this, we don't do this. And in baseball, I mean, obviously, because the season is so long and it's every single day, you're going to live at least part time when you're there. But if I played baseball in a cold weather climate, I would and had money, I would most certainly have at least one place in where I had spring training or somewhere warm, because the day that season was over, my ass would be gone.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's how most of these guys go about it. And you can't blame them for it. Like I said, it is a, like, wouldn't you do that if you earned enough money to do something a little bit different in life? Wouldn't you find somewhere cool to live? Like, that's what you should do, and that's where it should go about. Spring training is weird. And I know that the other thing, and I'll mention, and I did this yesterday, almost tempting fate, because I was bored and I didn't have to do anything during the game, and I was sitting in a game. I don't understand, and I know you go through this during the NFL preseason, how people react so much to what happens in a game in March. Like, like, who cares? Like, like, I see so many people, like, Jason Kipnis got a hit in the first inning, and I was like, yeah, he stays hot. And I was trolling. I was purposely doing it to see how many people would show how much of an ass they are. And it was amazing to me how many people were like, oh, he had 6 home runs last spring, he still sucks. And it's like, it's spring training, and you're making my point, dumbass.
Well, I can't answer those questions because, with the exception of eating lunch in Indy the other day and it being on a spring training game, I have not or would not look at an inning or a stat or anything related to it, so I can't answer that. But I think sometimes, or a lot of times, people are just trolling, and you're right, you're doing it too, but I think sometimes they're just going to do that, and then sometimes people are just going to be a-holes. But that leads me to my next thing that I wanted to talk about here. So if you guys aren't new here, sometimes we listen or we like to talk about issues in journalism world and just issues in the world and in the sports business things. So even if you're not in Cleveland, even if you listen to us without being a huge Browns fan, and there are some of you, and even if you listen to us without being attached to Twitter all the time, and God bless you, because we all could use an unplug.
No doubt.
What went on? What day was it? Tuesday? So Tuesday, late afternoon, early evening, a group of Browns players started tweeting. Dustin Fox followed that with an eyeball emoji. Every real insider and fake insider started jumping in, and everybody was excited that the Browns were coming down. I know some of it was trolling. I'm sure there was some real roots to it somewhere. It carried all the way through today. This is more than 24. This is Wednesday night as we record this, so more than 24 hours later. It went on. And look, Dre, this is part of the territory. And last year, this is the week that Dorsey made the trades. And as I answered to someone last week, I would have said, yeah, I could see Tyrod coming. On Jarvis, I would have said, it's plausible, but probably not. On Demarius Randall, I wouldn't have guessed that in 100 tries, right? So maybe there is something out there. It's not
right.
There's not a huge free agent signing out there. Maybe Trey Flowers. I would expect the Patriots to re-sign him before he hits the market. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I understand the excitement, especially this year, because the Browns, after like 16 straight years of being the offseason champions, have generated some real buzz, some real excitement, and everybody's pumped up because you know that Dorsey's aggressive. You know that this is a much more desirable destination than it was a year ago, and they still have money to spend and obvious holes to fill. I mean, they're clearly not there yet. However, they're not just begging for every player. They're filling in specifics, which is what the better teams do. Anyway, I just want to say this. As much as I roll my eyes at a lot of the bullshit, as much as I hate when the bullshit affects my job and players get mad at the media and all that stuff that carries over, and people do and say dumb shit. I kind of have a thesis statement to end this long ramble that I wanted to throw at you and see if you agree. And that's that when we are covering players in their 20s who have a high profile and who have grown that profile not only with their play and their standing in the community, but with their social media, I believe, and I hate it, I don't endorse it, I'm just saying I believe it's true, that when a guy makes a social media post, or more specifically deletes things from his social media, and we now know that wasn't the case with Duke Johnson, I believe that's semi-newsworthy and therefore in play. Am I crazy with that? I mean, like I said, I hate it. I want to throw up when I say that. Right?
I know. I think the Duke Johnson thing is the perfect reason why everybody should chill the fuck out and pay attention to their own lives. I mean, have you? Let me ask you an easy question. Have you ever broke a story from reading the social media of a player? That's a yes or no.
Probably not. Have I used the player's social media in developing story ideas or confirming
big difference
something? Yes. No, I can't say that I have, because even though I think the answer is probably no there. Yes.
I hear you. And look, everything is different. And I get it. And look, I'm no better than anybody else. I follow these guys 9 times out of 10. And I got to ask this question as well. And I got to ask this because I just want to go through this and then I'll continue going. With all the trades and all the moves that were made last year at this time by John Dorsey, did anybody have any freaking idea that they were coming?
No, like I said, no. I mean, you could see one of them. Yes. No, and that's how he rolls, and that's what's getting lost. People have lost that. No
and haven't we made that point time over time? All of us, even Dustin Fox, all of us, we've all made the point that John Dorsey goes out of his way not to leak anything. He'll leak something to embarrass you, to see who's talking within his own building, before he'll leak something so that everybody can know it. I find this so disastrous. I don't like where it's going. I don't like where our media is going. All of us, because we're all getting caught up in it one way or the other. And it just seems like it's one of those things at this point in time. Why are we paying so much attention to something that's said on some players' IG? Like you said, the whole thing with Duke Johnson, is it truly a breaking story if Duke Johnson is traded? I mean, we know the writing's on the wall. They didn't go get Kareem Hunt thinking and this is my feelings on this, and I said this the day Kareem Hunt was brought in, whether he sits out 4 games, whether he sits out 6 games. If you can get something, Kareem Hunt is 10 times better a player than Duke Johnson. That's no offense to Duke Johnson.
Doubt.
I like Duke Johnson.
Facts only. Core's hard facts, as the cool kids say. Yeah.
Right. He's the 3rd best running back on your team. You have 2 of the best running backs in football if he can stay out of trouble. If you can get something and get a draft pick this year to help make this team better, you would like to wait and find out what's going to happen to Kareem Hunt. But if you don't have that choice, you have to make that move when the best deal is out there for you. So anything that happens with Duke Johnson shouldn't be breaking news if we really are paying attention to what is going on. So I get what you're saying. I look at these different players' IGs or their Twitter accounts, but I make nothing of it because most of those players learn about when they get traded through IG and Twitter or through guys like us. I have never broke a story. And if I do, and here's the other thing, if you're a real journalist and you see a player do, and this is my opinion, and you can tell me if you're wrong, if I see a player put something weird up on Instagram or on social media and I have a way to contact them and I know them, I contact them and say, hey, is something up? What's going on? Do I need to know something? I don't start tweeting about it and just randomly just saying things out of the side of my ear hole, hoping something sticks. But in this day and age, and we had a, it's funny because I'm glad you brought this up. We could be 9,000 miles away from each other and the same conversations happen without us even talking about it. Obviously, I was in a media room today with other media members, and this exactly what you and I are talking about came up. And we all looked at each other and we're like, what is going on? Why is this like, because to me, and you know what it's like, it's not football season for you right now. So you can have more time to look at social media and things like that. But it is season for us. And when it's in season for us and you have the weirdness going on, it becomes more of a pain in the ass than something that you like.
Well, true. And I can't disagree with much of what you said there. I would say this. My first reaction to any of it is to thank the Lord above and all involved that I don't work for what clickbait shop anymore, right? And I don't have to care about this
right.
stuff, right?
Right.
You're right. If it's an athlete I know or a rising athlete, I would have a serious conversation about how this is going to happen and you're not going to like it and it can't benefit you. So be very careful about how this goes. However, like, you know, what they put out there is public domain and what they do is news. And I'll say this about Duke Johnson. Okay, from a football standpoint, it makes zero sense to trade him right now, barring crazy value, which has not happened for a running back. And I mean, the guy's not a starting running back. The guy's a uniquely talented player. He's not a starting running back, right? So I don't see it happening. The only two scenarios that I do see it happening anytime soon would be one, that someone who has an asset that the Browns consider really valuable also value Duke Johnson, and that becomes a way to get a deal done. Because we all forget here in free agency frenzy and trade frenzy that if a guy's really available, the Browns aren't, and he's really worth a darn, the Browns aren't the only team that wants him. We've got to keep that in mind,
exactly.
Right? So if we can use it there, and again, I see that down the road because running backs historically have little to no trade value. And then the other thing is Duke is always the kind of guy. Now, he's never been in trouble, as he said. He's never caused a public problem, but he's always been the kind of guy that will tell you how he feels. And because he's always out front, always stands in front of the cameras, is active on social media, is the rare Browns player that's been here for more than 9 months, right? People know him. and he carries a chip on his shoulder. And there could come a time where Duke could say, hey, I don't know why they gave me this contract if they weren't just going to use me after that. And so, again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I could see a scenario where Duke just says, hey, if you guys don't want me, the sooner you get rid of me, the better, so I can get in a new team's off-season program. And even though he got money, he didn't get a ton. He got good running back money. He didn't get a ton of money. The Browns are willing to pay it up front. So as I ask you guys, as you parse through these rumors, who in the hell wants a $14 million a year guard? Okay, for one.
Yes, nobody.
For two, the Browns did not re-sign Greg effing Robinson to ditch one of their best offensive linemen. They signed Greg effing Robinson to keep the line together. Like, get a clue here, people, right? And I know we all have NBA trade deadline disease, and I know we all have Twitter disease, right? I'm just asking you to get a clue. So, yeah, could I see it happening? But we all need to pump the brakes. And like I said, I guess to sum up the whole thing, I'm glad I don't have to do it. But I want all young athletes to understand that that whether they think it's fair or not, anything that they tweet, snap, IG, say on the radio, whatever it may be, is going to get feasted upon. And the sooner they know that, the better.
Well, that's fuck athletes. No offense to them. And no offense saying that word.
Yeah.
That's to everybody. Like, and you and I just said that to a class, 2 weeks ago. And I think that's part of but I think as journalists, at some point in time, don't we have to find a way to? The clickbait thing is a real thing, and it's garbage, to be completely honest. But when are we going to put a safety guard upon ourselves? Like, we're bosses to say, hey, we don't do our work off of what players do on Instagram or what they do on social media. Right. Why don't we wait and do it the right way? Talk to someone. Where happened to the safeguarding of ourselves? Because media, to me, whether it's a radio show or whether it's a writer that's sitting at his house the whole time or sitting at a pool who's retweeting and just making up stuff as he goes, how is that helping any of us? Like, as a player, and I'm not standing up for the player, but at some point in time, what do you expect? Like, they're people, and we say this to kids all the time: be careful what you tweet, be careful what you put up there. That lasts forever. But at the same time, they're human beings. They can't, like, to me, they're trolling back at stupid fans that are willing to get into it and not have any idea what they're talking about.
No doubt. I think yesterday was players joking around saying, look at this reaction we can get, and they did it, right? And they're human.
Right, exactly.
Those guys are way prouder of having the bank accounts that they have than the Twitter followers. But let's not be naive and act like they don't care about the Twitter followers and the IG followers too, because they do.
Oh, they get bored.
Yeah.
I'm around guys, and I know, and I've seen players do it. I've seen players say, "Watch me tweet this out and watch people react." I have seen them do it. Why? Because they're just as childish as you and I are, and who doesn't like playing the magic trick with a bunch of their friends, right? Like, you telling me that after you and I had a couple drinks, if we knew we could just put out something like that and everybody would act stupid about it and we would just keep drinking and walk away, that wouldn't be funny to us? That's basically, to me, what happened. It was like, oh, look at this. We'll do that. You do this, and watch how these fools react. I don't know. At some point in time, I just wish there was more. And here's the thing about social media. There's no policing of it, right? You can say whatever you want. And this is what we were talking about today. We're in a day and age where on radio and on social media, you can say here, the perfect example was here in Arizona. And this will take us to the football area. Kyler Murray got killed by Charlie Casserly and a couple other people for whatever happened in his meetings. I hate, and you and I have talked about this, and Phil Savage said it years ago, silly season is in effect, right? We're in silly season where anything and everything can be true and anything and everything can be a lie. And the anonymous reports and anonymous scoops are bullshit. If you have something and you really have – and people believe this. If a scout or if someone really knew something about what happens in those rooms, do you think they would just run to the Twitter machine and tweet it out? Wouldn't teams – I don't know what happened with Kyler Murray. I do know that his dad's been a quarterback coach his whole life. I do know that lies happen like no other place. Yes. And the Arizona radio station said it perfectly last night. They're like, the same person tweeted out that Kyler Murray had the worst combine weekend ever. That same person was also saying that Josh Rosen was on the trading block. You can't be both. Like, how can you report both of those things out of your mouth? Like, how can you say he was terrible, he's not going to go in the first round, it's a joke, and also Arizona may trade Josh Rosen? That doesn't make sense. But people just throw stuff to see what flops and hits the wall, and everybody runs with it and reports it. It's so annoying. It's a shame.
Well, I would sum it up like this, and I ask if you are an engaged Browns fan, NFL fan listening, and you found us from Twitter, or you're on there. Like, guys, Twitter's been around a few years now, right? And I know the Browns haven't been good, but every offseason's been interesting to an extent. And this offseason's been played by the same rules now since 2011 when they signed the new CBA. So we all know how this goes on. And we all know John Dorsey, who doesn't tell anybody shit. So I'm not trying to say don't get excited about anything or don't get pumped about anything. But really, like, at what point do we quit believing the bullshit, right?
Right.
Dustin is super connected in the league and in the building, much more so than I, right? I'm sure that when he tweeted those eyeballs that someone gave him a tip as to something. I have not personally spoken to him, but I also know that he was getting a chuckle out of when he drove down 77 and saw the responses and saw the shitstorm, that he was like, oh, well. And because he didn't put his name to it, because he wasn't back on the air till 2 o'clock, guess what Dustin did? He ate some shrimp. He ate some steak. He took his shoes off. He chilled out, and he went to bed. He got up at 5 a.m. He jumped boxes. He posted 3 selfies, and then he looked at Twitter, right? Like, he did not sweat every detail, so I hate that. But the Kyler Murray thing, I'm glad you brought that up. Again, like, we've played this game before, and without getting into Charlie Casserly and without getting into everybody taking what some person tells them and turning it into a story without any real attribution or whatever. The Cardinals saying that they want Kyler Murray, true or not, Dre, is kind of brilliant. And maybe more than kind of.
It is.
Because if they want him, they got nothing to hide, right? And you start gauging reaction and seeing what you can and can't do. But if you really don't, or if you really think that Nick Bosa's that good of a player and you still want Kyler Murray, now you've put an auction out there for whoever wants Nick Bosa, because the teams right behind you aren't taking Kyler Murray. So
nope.
I am quite sure that this is intentional. I don't know that for 100%, and I think it's well played, and as we know as well as anyone here in Cleveland. Well, first of all, there's a difference between silly season and absurdly stupid season, but you made a great example. That was Phil's signature line. But as silly season proceeds, and especially if it becomes absurdly stupid season, like some of it's unavoidable, because that's what happens when you have a 4-month build-up to the start of the draft that's become an event of its own, right, that we all lose our minds over and has become an event of its own. But some of it, guys, is like, well, we'll find out on April 25th, which is 2 days before Demo Days at Fireworks, by the way.
Great way to say that. Yes, I mean, but I don't know about you. I used to like the draft, and now I'm lucky because once baseball season starts, the silly stuff just goes out of the window for me, and I just wait till the actual day of the draft, and I just ignore it. I guess I can't. It's easier for me to pay attention to a lot of the noise and a lot of the junk now because it's just spring training and I got a lot of idle time, especially with my kids and family not here right now. They'll be here soon. But like as I go through all this stuff over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, I'm like, what are you guys doing? And like what are you going to do for the next 3 weeks? Like players haven't even had their own. I know that we've had the combine, but guys haven't even had their first workouts yet. Like you said, the Cardinals are playing this absolutely perfect. They're running through everything they possibly can. But I mean, there's no way in the world they can tell you right now on March 7th. They have no idea what they're going to do with the first pick. They haven't even been able to really sit with Joey Bosa and really go over who he is and what he is. The Kyler Murray thing, I think, is I just find it all. I find it all. The thing is, you said this about the combine the other day, and it was true. How he was everything. He was the story. He was everything about those 4 or 5 days in Indianapolis. I don't know about you, and I'm sure there is, but just thinking right now, I have never seen such a wide net upon one player in such a long time. And maybe it was a little bit with Baker last year because of his size. And do you think a quarterback that big sound familiar? Or do you what about his off-field stuff? Does he compare to Johnny? And now Kyler Murray, and maybe that's just what we're going to do now that you have to draft quarterbacks that aren't prototype size. They've always broke these players down to the very last compound. I just feel like now we're going through extremes that aren't necessary to get to the end of the means. And maybe we all want to be draftniks. We all want to be cool and think we know someone or know something that's happening. I have more excitement sitting back and kind of letting it happen and fall in place without trying to. I don't know. That's just me. And
let's leave logic out of this for one. It stems from this. Like, the Combine is not truly a made-for-TV event. The most important things, 80% of the time at the Combine, are the medicals, which are supposed to be private, the drug tests, which are supposed to be private, but we know they aren't, and the meetings, which every team not only handles differently, but keeps private, except for whoever's talking to Charlie Casserly, right? So, and that's whether those things are true or not. Like, that's kind of how it goes. Like, the workout is the last thing at the Combine, and for many, many years, it was not on TV. And so what leaked out was 40 times from agents. True or not, I don't know. Well, there wasn't an NFL network to share it, right? How'd the guy throw? Well, I don't know. A number of years ago, the PFWA started allowing a certain amount of writers into the actual workout to watch and observe.
Now you can buy tickets to go and watch.
Yeah. Now I got guys helping me out of the elevator, telling me they're here to watch the Combine. They're going to play for the Steelers this year. Yeah. Yeah.
What a world! What a time to be alive!
What a time to be alive! Is right. So and that's even more so with these pro days. Like, I'm going to go to 2 or 3 because for my job, I get up close with these guys. I didn't see them all at the Combine. Right. At the pro day, the college coach is going to be there. In many cases, the parent's going to be there. Other people from their families. Like, if you're really trying to write about the person, the pro day is where to be. But people will always be like, well, how was that pro day? I'm like, well, I stood in the corner for 4 hours and texted Andre.
Right.
Yeah,
who cares, right?
I went to Saquon Barkley's pro day last year. I mean, State College is like the worst drive in America from where I live.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you get there, and you got to get there early because you don't know the weather. And frankly, I hadn't been to Penn State in many years. Go to a campus, you don't know how it's going to park. Anyway, so NFL Network is live, ESPN's live, somebody else is there. But basically what it consisted of is standing around for 4 hours, and then you could see the players work out, and Saquon didn't work out, and then we got to interview him for 12 minutes. So that I'm not saying that it's an awful job. I have a great job because my day was spent at State College in rubbing elbows with NFL people, right, on the media side and on the scouting side. But the bottom line is, for 6 hours, I waited for Saquon Barkley, and he did not participate in a drill, right? So, like, it's kind of how it goes. And the reason he did not participate in a drill, guys, is because his work spoke for itself. So other guys there that day had things to prove or things to fill in or whatever it might or might not have been. But this is all it's kind of like spring training, right? You can get riled up. Yeah. There's a statistic in there somewhere that can catch your eye, but it doesn't mean shit.
It doesn't. Speaking of, one of the coolest things I ever saw, we're about 15 minutes away from this baseball game starting, so that means we're getting – I know you got things to do. So we're getting close to wrapping up this podcast. But right now on a golf cart, I always tell the Jim Brown story when we're in Pittsburgh and how all our running backs, Jamal Lewis and everybody freaked out, ran over to him. Well, right now on a golf cart going around the dirt of the field is Tommy Lasorda, and they stopped in front of the Indians dugout. And it was just really cool because Tito don't go out of the dugout before a game for shit, because that's when he has his best talks. And that's when he's talking about everything that I can't tell you guys on this podcast
right.
about. But just for the last 5 minutes, he jumped out of his seat, put down his bubble gum, quote unquote, and went up and gave a big hug to Tommy Lasorda. And it's kind of cool just to see Tommy Lasorda still wearing his number 2 jersey, still waving at everybody. And he's got to be 80 plus because he's barely moving. Just cool to see how people react to somebody like that with this game.
Hey, what we do beats the hell out of working for a living, right? So it's really
hell
cool.
Yeah.
We don't forget that. That's why we appreciate you guys listening, coming along for the ride. And look, I'm excited to see what the Browns do too, guys. But I'm just saying, take an honest look. There's maybe one free agent move that would be considered really big. And, the time to trade Odell Beckham was last year before he signed the contract and when the Browns had all these extra picks. Right now, I'm just telling you guys, it might happen. But it might happen tonight by the time you listen to this podcast tomorrow morning. But chances are, that the Browns would say, if Odell Beckham is really available, then we should not want him for a long, long list of reasons. That's where I am. I'm not trying to be old man, get you guys off my lawn. I'm just telling you the truth. 6 months ago, they signed him to one of the biggest contracts in the history of the NFL.
Right. And it doesn't add up. And the money that would come out of the dead money, and you and I aren't smart enough to break that down or figure that out. The money just wouldn't go well on their cap. They're trying to get another quarterback. And you're telling me you don't want Dwayne Haskins with Saquon Barkley and to see if it will work with Beckham first? I'm just, that to me, just the science of it. And they're getting ready to do the national anthem. So you got to talk through this because I don't want to be the black guy without a hat on.
Here's what I'm going to say, guys. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate your feedback, your input, whether it's in person, in the Twitter mentions, in the DMs, it goes down in the DMs, whatever it is. We love doing this. We love that we get to be a part of things that sometimes we're at, sometimes we're not. And we love talking about this stuff. So I just ask, out of respect and out of common decency and logic here, guys, choose your Twitter insiders wisely. Don't Twitter snitch. Don't overreact, good or bad. No championship. The Browns have been winning championships in March and April for a long GD time, right? And it hasn't translated to nothing. So enjoy the ride. Listen to the Indians. Watch the Indians if you get a few innings. Watch the Cavs. Unfortunately, they got some games left. They haven't clinched anything yet. See what happens. Just ask. Have fun with it. We do. Spread the love on the podcast. Facebook.com/A to Z podcast. A to Z podcast.com. Support our sponsors. That's Cleveland Scene. That's the Honeymoon Grill. That's American Fireworks. Follow all them on Instagram, on Twitter. And, thanks again. Are we done with the anthem yet?
Kenichi, she's still going. It's all right. I'm in a booth. Nobody's around me. I'm good.
Okay.
I was just going to say Kenichiwa snitches just because I was figured that was a good one.
On that note, we'll talk to you next week.